Not only did November 22nd change the course of history, but also it has limited our ability to only serve the otherwise transformative events of 1963 a la carte. The year since the assassination has given us more than enough unanswered questions, a plethora of conspiracy theories, the meticulous poring over of the Warren Commission in search of the key evidence not yet revealed, and the accumulated distrust that we've transferred to other events. 3 days after the centennial of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, the nation was again torn asunder. It was not severed geographically, as it was in Lincoln's day, but it was ripped apart nevertheless by what happened in the motorcade route. Invoking Lincoln's words at Gettysburg, the world will little note nor long remember what was said in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, but it can never forget what was done there. What happened in the motorcade route managed to place a period on what would otherwise be a semicolon on the amazing metamorphosis of John F. Kennedy as president. The young commander-in-chief who had the worst inaugural foreign policy year of any president in the 20th century clearly learned from his miscues. He used what he learned from the Bay of Pigs, his unsuccessful summit with Khrushchev, and the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961 to stare down the Soviet leader during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 and sign the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 1963. In 1960, candidate Kennedy was naive, as was the majority of the nation, about the severity of civil rights as an issue domestically as well as internationally. But the leadership of Martin Luther King Jr. and elsewhere, the political ambitions of George Wallace, and the brutality of Bull Connor moved Kennedy from the safe confines of political promises. He went from simplistically offering a stroke of his pen to eradicate something the nation has struggled with since its inception, if elected in 1960, to declaring on June 11, 1963, we are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the scriptures and as clear as the Constitution. What happened in the motorcade route has caused us to focus almost exclusively on the tragedy that fell upon a 46-year-old man who was at the apex of life. In the age of television, America saw Kennedy grow into the presidency, demonstrating tremendous leadership home and abroad. In 1963, the presidency and John F. Kennedy fit like hand in glove. No American president in the 20th century experienced a month of meaningful oratory like Kennedy had in June 1963. Over the span of 17 days, Kennedy humanized the Soviet Union, the next day made civil rights a moral issue, and with a mangled German phrase, he fluently spoke to the superiority of freedom to the people of West Berlin. But that man, if he were alive today, though it seems doubtful given his documented health challenges, would have been 96. He has been cryogenically frozen in our minds. His charm, confidence, youth, vitality, at least publicly, have caused us to ignore another group that warrants our commiseration. The assassination in Dallas began a systematic following of a family who has endured enormous tragedy. In addition to Dallas, we grieved when shots rang out in the Ambassador Hotel in 1968. We did likewise roughly a year later when Mary Jo Kopechne drowned at Chappaquiddick Island. Some of us even believe that the man who was driving when Kopechne died could have been president, even though he failed to provide Roger Mudd with a cogent response when simply asked, "Senator, why do you want to be president?" in 1980. We remember the image of a young child barely old enough to comprehend the magnitude of the moment, saluting his father's flag-draped coffin as it passed by. How could that moment not emotionally invade the lymph nodes of our soul? We placed our hopes, no matter how fleeting, in the Kennedy name for more than a generation. Maybe, just maybe, Camelot could make a return performance. Such thoughts were misleading because Camelot were the melancholy longings from a post-Dallas creation. But we so desperately wanted to believe it, if only to assuage our unexamined pain. The unintended consequences of our grief have led to the inability to examine what November 22nd did to us. It was a blow to the nation's solar plexus, leaving us excruciating pain, but also causing arrested development and acute cynicism. Dallas made the inconceivable possible. Before J.R. Ewing became a pop culture icon, Dallas was a euphemism for unfathomable shock. That is not to suggest that we've not been stunned by subsequent tragic events, but for those living on November 22nd, 1963, America would never be the same. The decade that began with the Kennedy campaign running on the Frank Sinatra theme of high hopes would later be defined more by Dr. Timothy Leary's nonconforming idiom, turn on, tune in, drop out. With brief exceptions, America has been overtly dominated by an us versus them ethos that seems unwilling to forego a suffocating grip on our democracy. For those who believe that conspiracy theories are a cabal of crackpots searching for a platform, it is reflective, however, of a 50-year-old odyssey that continues to leave holes in the official explanation. But cynicism doesn't occur overnight. In retrospect, the seepy stereotypes that were held for the 1950s could not camouflage the obvious. Cynicism was already there, lying dormant, waiting for the opportune moment. What led to the Vietnam protests later in the 1960s was created by decades of presidential leadership methodically kicking the can down the road. Vietnam was a mess before Lyndon Johnson was granted the opportunity to add his own tragic decisions to the equation. Civil rights did not begin in '63, but that was the year it grabbed the nation's attention. Therefore, 1963 in many ways serves as an incubator for cynicism yet unborn. In many ways, whatever cynicism that's dwelled beneath the surface, it was unleashed in Dallas. It immobilized the nation in such a way that has been able to look back on that year for 365 days, neatly wove hope and hostility into a single garment of possibility and pain. What happened in the motorcade route changed the people, but the elected leaders were slow to catch up, engrossed more in their traditional playbook than what was occurring in the hearts and minds of many Americans. But it was too late. On November 22nd, 1963, at approximately 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the memo went out from Dallas. The change was on the horizon, and there was no turning back. Thank you.